Well, thank you, Chamberlain. We're turning our attention now to Kaduna State, particularly the crisis in southern Kaduna. You recall that just on Easter Monday, Aso community was said to have been affected by another crisis. 12 people were said to have been killed in that attack on Aso community, I think in Jama'a local government area. Joining me now is Sanusi Maikudi, who is the traditional he holds the traditional title, beg your pardon, of Dan Iya Jama'a of Jama'a Emirate, and also a community leader of Southern Kaduna Muslims. You're also a conflict resolution expert.
A conflict resolution student.
Student? Oh, okay, that's good to know. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, now you have seen in the last couple of months how this crisis has been off and on. You know, 1 minute it would seem that there's been some quiet, the next minute from the blues we will see that there's been another attack on another community. For you, what would you say has been the root of this crisis?
Thank you very much. You know, this is a very interesting starting point. You are now talking of root cause. The conflict in southern Kaduna, you can summarize that it is complicated, it is complex, and it has been age-long. And it used to take different characters over time. There are different triggers that will explode at different times. But unlike what is going on, why finding lasting solution to it has been very difficult and evasive over time is because people fail to be objective and comprehensive in mapping out the root cause, the conflict drivers, the aggressors, and the victims. The popular narratives in the media now is that the southern Kaduna indigenes are being killed by Fulanis, herdsmen. If you Google it over the media, read newspapers, read television. But that is only half of the story. The Fulanis have been there for over 400 years. Documented evidence. Some places are named after in Fulani language. There is a town called Marwa, and there is Marwa in Adamawa State. There is Marwa in Cameroon. And these are Fulani language names. That means they had been there for antiquity, a very long time. Why was it that in the before 4 or 5 years, there was no conflict between the Fulani and the so-called indigenous people? Why is it that it started in 2011? If you Googled the attack on communities at night, the oldest document you will find was that by the Christian Solidarity Worldwide, based in the United States of America. It occurred at a village in Java local government called Bitaro. So if it started in 2011, that means there was something that provoked it. Because prior, yes, look at the record, the night attack on the indigenous community, but ethno-religious conflict has been going on for several decades, but you can take the landmark, the major one in which the killing was out of proportion, what started in Kasuwa Magani when Balarabe Musa was the governor in 1981. Kasuwa Magani, I think in Chukwu local government, or Kajuru local government. After that one, you have Kafancha 1987. You have Kafancha 1996. You have Kafancha 99. You have the famous one of Zangon Katav in 1992. Then you have the Miss World protest in Kaduna. You have the Sharia riot. So the history of contemporary southern Kaduna is a history of ethno-religious conflict. But some people want to portray that is something that started 2-3 years ago. Anybody who is objective, who is passionate and sincere about finding lasting solution, must look at it from the earliest beginning, as you have said. What is the remote cause? The remote cause is 1, injustice, 2, impunity, 3, leadership failure, 4, refusal to accept diversity.
When you say injustice, injustice against whom?
Against the victims of ethno-religious conflict in southern Kaduna. I am one of the victims. My father came to southern Kaduna in 1945 as a teenager. My mother is an indigenous person of southern Kaduna who belongs to a farming community in a village called Matsirga. Matsirga is in Zangon Kataf local government. There is a waterfall and a marshland called Fadama. So my mother belongs to a farming community. That's their trade, while my father is a trader. That Matsirga, the whole population is not more than up to 400 people. But during the post-election violence, that village was cleansed. 124 people were killed, 70-something were injured, and the whole village is now displaced. And somebody has taken over their farmland, which they have been cultivating for over 200-300 years, saying a Hausa man, a Fulani man is not indigenous to southern Kaduna. They are settlers. Nigerian constitution, international law does not recognize indigenous settler. So indigenous settler dichotomy is being used to discriminate against the minority in southern Kaduna. And the minorities in terms of religion are the Muslims. They are about 40%, while the Christians are about 60%. But they are using that majority to load it over others. The killing has been done by the members of SOKAPO, Southern Kaduna People Union.
Those are allegations.
It's true. It's true. The Zangon Kataf crisis have been investigated. The ATF community were found guilty. General Lekod was sentenced to death. People appealed. It was commuted to life sentence, and he was pardoned at a point in time. The 2011 violence was investigated by Sheikh Ahmed Lemu presidential panel of investigation. There was a report of federal government that 1,000 people have been killed. That report was sent to President Goodluck, and the major finding was the killing in southern Kaduna and impunity in other parts of the country is because nobody is being punished for killing others. And if people don't want people to kill people for whatever reason, justice has to take its course. There and then, President Goodluck, in his own speech, after taking the report, he said he is more interested in forestalling future reoccurrence rather than punishing people. It is there. Google President Goodluck's speech when he was receiving the Sheikh Ahmed Lemu report on post-election violence.
The question was, you know, even though it shouldn't really matter, people should say that, you know, the people who were involved in that crisis were Nigerians. And
Thank you very much.
And at the end of the day,
thank you very much.
Why should Nigerians kill fellow Nigerians?
Thank you very much.
But, you know, since we're now talking factions, and since, you know, in a conflict, it takes two sides to meet in a conflict. So SOKAPO has also said that in that particular 2011 conflict, it was the supporters of, you know, the current president who had taken to the streets to cause the destruction. Yeah,
let me tell you, the records are there. The record, physical records, written record, for your information. The southern Kaduna aspect of the 2011 post-election violence was thoroughly and comprehensively investigated by Human Rights Watch based in United States. They issued report. The main report is 130-something pages, and they did executive summary because they know a lot of people are very busy, they don't have time to read. It was authored by one Eric. I have soft copy. I wouldn't mind to share it with you. If there is denial, if there is falsehood, if there is propaganda, you mix issues with politics, you add salt and pepper just to achieve political ends. You are not a patriot.
Okay, so let us...
You are not looking for solutions.
Let me ask you this question very pointedly.
Yeah.
You lead the Muslim community in southern Kaduna.
Yes.
Did the Muslim community suffer more casualties in the 2011 conflict?
Not only in 2011. From independence to date, all the crises that have been taking place in southern Kaduna, the 4 major indicators of suffering: loss of lives, the Muslims lost more lives than the Christians. Injuries, the Muslims suffer more fatal injuries than the Christians. Loss of economic asset and property, the Muslims suffer more. And then the worst possible displacement. I will tell you, and I can prove, that during the 2011 post-election violence, when a Sokapu member, a CAN member, led Sir Patrick Ibrahim Yakwa was a governor, 66,000 Muslims were displaced from 18 southern Kaduna Muslim communities. Up to now, 95% are refused right to return. These are places they have been. If you look at the contemporary history of Nigeria, before the coming of the Europeans, the Northern Protectorate, Southern Protectorate, 1914 amalgamation, these people were there before colonial government.
Sorry.
I
have to interrupt you. I'm sorry, because we have to take a moment now. When we come back, we will talk a bit more about the 2011 post-election violence and how communities were affected.
Thank you.
Just stay with us.